This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. We are here in Las Vegas and I'm joined by DAZN's Markowski. Joe, firstly, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Obviously, it's always good to be out here in Las Vegas, especially when it's a big fight week. Canelo Triple G3 is only a matter of days away. Now, Joe, talk about the build-up for this. On your side of things, what's it been like to be a part of?
Well, the build-up's been going on for 4 years. I remember being at Canelo Triple G2, I think it was September 2018, and just prior to the start of our relationship with Canelo Alvarez, and we, to be honest, have been trying to make this fight for the vast majority of that time. Various reasons I won't go into for why it didn't happen, but it's great to finally have got it over the line and to be here ahead of what's proven to be a massive promotion and a massive build-up to a mega fight. So, yeah, we're really excited.
What do you expect when the pair of them are actually in the ring, Joe? Do you anticipate it will live up to what the first and the second fights were like?
I think so. I mean, a lot of people, I think, in the last 6 months sort of like written off Gennady and saying he's too old and Canelo's a different beast to what he was in 2018. And you get into fight week and the noise, I think, and the position has sort of changed from a lot of people thinking that, you know, Gennady's got a very good chance of getting the win. So, you know, potentially if he does, then we're into Canelo Triple G4 planning. But look, I think it's a fantastic fight that they've proven that they are very, very strong dance partners for each other. The styles match up. Canelo's changed as a fighter. Gennady, you know, is a Hall of Fame fighter. They're back at 168. Let's see what happens. But I think it's got all the ingredients to make it a fantastic fight on the night, and obviously that's good for us as the broadcaster.
Leading into the fight, there was a lot of talk as to whether or not Canelo had kind of waited out this fight so that Triple G could age a little more. But do you believe if it wasn't for the pandemic, we may have seen a trilogy back sooner? Yeah,
probably. I wouldn't say the pandemic is the only reason it hasn't happened sooner, but it's definitely one of them. I mean, first of all, boxing stopped for 3-4 months in the US. We're a major part of making it happen. We had to go through a review of our business and you know, to replan our business and reforecast our business and use our money in different ways to keep the business, you know, healthy. So here we are. Like, all of that is gone. The fight's happening. It's exciting. Fans are excited. There are, you know, 1,500 fans, I reckon, in the press conference today. The weigh-in tomorrow will be even bigger outside the stadium, and look, the anticipation's there. So yeah, we're very excited about it.
On the pay-per-view boys front, I steady this, but I'll get your thoughts as you work for DAZN. The first fight did around 1.3 million boys, second 1.1. What's your anticipation for it?
We've got a number in our head that we'd be happy with. I think it's, you know, got every chance of doing a similar number to the second fight. We'll see. We've launched our pay-per-view platform. We had success with that in May with the Bivol fight. We learnt a bit, which I think will improve our acquisition going forward. We've got a bigger and bigger base of customers and former customers who've bought for Canelo previously, and that this fight's got its own unique sort of place in the minds of boxing fans. So look, we are confident we're tracking towards a number we're happy with, but ultimately it comes down to how well we do tomorrow. I mean, the real action is from 4 p.m. local time tomorrow through to 8:30 when the fight-ish, 8:15-ish when it will start. So we'll see buys all the way through to the second or third round, to be honest, maybe even some on Sunday morning. So yeah, we're confident in the numbers. We're excited about the work we've done. We've had some very good marketing in big, high-profile NFL and college football games, for example, as well as our digital marketing. So yeah, we're not concerned about that.
On the pay-per-view front, Joe, I think it'd be fair to say DAZN have certainly been criticised the most recently because of past comments we read from yourself already saying that it wouldn't be launched on the DAZN platforms, a pay-per-view platform that is. I just want to throw a few questions at you around that. I'm sure you've seen.
That was something I've thought at the time. I wasn't misrepresenting or lying at the time. At the time the fight wasn't made, I didn't think it would be necessary to use pay-per-view in the UK for this fight. That changed. I acknowledge I said something different. You know, ultimately, it's there for UK fans if they want to watch it as a pay-per-view, a reasonably priced pay-per-view. We understand some of the naysayers not wanting to do that. That's their choice to do that. It was necessary in the broader mix of the economics of this fight for us to do that, and we've chosen to do it. So, yeah, I own the previous statements, but you know, hopefully that gives some context to the previous statement.
Just speaking to Eddie about it yesterday, when you'd originally said that it wouldn't land on pay-per-view, I think most people were obviously expecting that to be the case, but Eddie said he wasn't expecting huge numbers in the UK in terms of how many buys it would do. So with that in mind, how much of a benefit do you feel it will be to still place it on pay-per-view despite it only being less than £10 to customers who decide to buy?
I don't want to go into the nuts and bolts of the economics of our business, but it's going to help. There's an audience of fans who want to see this fight. We aren't going to apologise for wanting to commercialise our boxing rights. Frankly, if you look at the value for money that DAZN has brought boxing fans since we went into boxing 5 years ago, sometimes I get a bit frustrated about being pinged about, this is now this price, you said this 5 years ago, okay, all good. But compare us to the rest of the market right now in terms of the value for money and the cost of our subscriptions and our pay-per-views. That's what we should be compared against, not against things that happened previously. People saying to me, oh, you're much more expensive than £1.99. It's like, yes, that was the introductory launch price. So I think the context of what we're being compared against, I think, is more relevant than our legacy pricing or our early marketing strategies when we came into the market. Without question, we offer the best value for money to boxing fans. We're consistently focused, because we are focused in the US and the UK pretty much exclusively on boxing right now. We've got a team of people spending all their time building the best possible boxing schedule. As a result, we deliver the best schedule, in my opinion. We deliver the most regular big events. We work with the best promoters. We work with the best fighters. We are constantly going out of our way to make big fights happen for our subscribers, for fight fans. So that, I think, is where people need to compare us to, not what we did 5 years ago or what our introductory pricing was or how much it cost pre-pay-per-view. We're not going to apologise for building a business. We're building a successful business. We're doing so through consistent delivery to fans. And occasionally, sparingly, we'll use pay-per-view technology and functionality.
Just one more on it. There seems to be a bit of confusion over social media that suggested if you was to buy this pay-per-view, you have to purchase a month subscription alongside that. Can you just confirm or deny that?
Yeah, so the way that DAZN pay-per-view works, which is similar to ESPN Plus, for example, here in the US, is subscribers can buy the pay-per-view. You have to be a subscriber to buy the pay-per-view. That's how it works. The subscription is priced at £7.99 in the UK, and on top of that you buy the pay-per-view as and when we'll use it. The vast majority of fights in our schedule to date and going forward will not be on pay-per-view. Occasionally they will be, this weekend being one such example.
Away from this weekend and away from pay-per-view talk, FuryJoshua, another hot topic. Joe, obviously on the back of Anthony signing his deal with DAZN, were you guys happy to kind of engage in this conversation? Because some people have suggested if AJ loses to Tyson Fury, if a fight was to go ahead, how much value does he lose commercially then?
Well, I think, look, I mean, there's different kinds of losses, right? I think what the UFC has taught boxing, or at least I hope it's taught boxing, is that a loss doesn't necessarily mean that your stock goes down. I don't think AJ's stock went down by losing to Usyk in the way he did. I think in some people's eyes it went up. I think, by the way, it's premature to talk about that fight from a broadcast perspective because nothing is agreed, nothing is contracted, discussions will be ongoing. But hypothetically, if that fight was to happen, it makes sense for both fighters, in my opinion. It's the right time for that fight to happen. If it doesn't happen now, it probably won't for a few years. It makes sense for AJ because he's got the bit between his teeth, I imagine, and wants to avenge a couple of losses. Fury backs himself, I'm sure, to beat him and put the sort of discussions around who's the best British heavyweight of this generation to bed. I see why for both of them it makes sense now, and timing-wise it could happen. So let's see what happens. As I say, it's premature to talk about it. We're not in formal discussions on it yet. Boxing contract would need to be finalised and locked in before we engage in broadcast conversations. There'll be various legal and commercial steps to step through for us and BT if that's where the conversations go. But as and when we have that opportunity, we'll definitely be an active and willing participant in those conversations because as a British fight fan myself, and for you of course as well, it'd be a fantastic fight. And it's interesting, isn't it, I think, that although this is not the undisputed World Heavyweight Championship fight that we thought Fury-Joshua might be, it's almost bigger now than it was because the context and the narrative is really what drives it, not the belts or anything else. So if it happens, and it's an if at this point, we'll be at that table and engaged in positive discussions, I hope.
Just listening to your answer there as well, I take it you'd be more than happy to work on some form of like a joint pay-per-view with BT?
I think we have to be pragmatic and flexible. You know, the last 5 years, and we're responsible partly for this, you've seen promoters and therefore fighters have exclusive relationships with broadcasters. It's important. We've always been on record saying this. We've tried to do it in the US. It's hard sometimes. We want to be flexible. We want to, where we need to, share pay-per-views, share broadcasts. If we have to loan out our fighters occasionally to make fights happen, we'll do that. Part of the reason we built a pay-per-view platform was to enable us to participate in conversations like this, because previously, when we didn't have a pay-per-view platform, it would have been impossible for us to have a conversation like the hypothetical one with BT, because how do you share a fight if your platforms don't have the same pricing functionality? Or all of that is part of the reason we built the pay-per-view platform. It's part of the reason we have pay-per-views on DAZN. Not the only reason, but it's part of the mix. So as and when that conversation starts, we'll be, you know, technically able and commercially willing to have that conversation.
For you guys as partners with Anthony Joshua, then what's the cut-off for yourselves? Because I'm sure you'd like a lengthy enough build-up so you can promote the show as best as possible.
I think if it's going to happen, it will happen in the next couple of weeks. Let's see. It's premature to talk about it right now, as I say.
Just one final one. Obviously, you got Eubank Jr-Benn only around the corner, but what was your take on Senior's comments that he was looking to pull out Junior? And were you guys ever worried that the fight may not go ahead?
No. I did send one text to Calla and a text to Frank and Eddie saying, what's going on here? But ultimately, Junior's the Eubank getting into the ring. He's the fighter. I think Eubank Senior took us all by surprise, frankly, but there's no truth in it. I think as the comments came out, Eubank Jr was in a 10-round sparring session, I think, is what Calla told me. So, look, we're really excited. I think that'll be the biggest event we've done in the UK to date. We're very excited about it, and once we get through this week, it becomes the absolute priority and focus for me and my teams to go and maximise that. And, you know, that's got so many interesting ingredients. You know, the generational handover from fighters, fathers to sons, from Eddie and Barry, and the relevance the fathers' fights had in British culture. The emergence of these two very contrasting, both equally interesting characters in Eubank Jr and Ben. You know, it's going to appeal to a much broader range of the British public than a standard fight does, and that makes it good business for us. So we're excited, and I think October the 8th will be our biggest night in the UK to date. Hopefully backed up with another big fight before the end of the year.
Just a final one, Joe. You've obviously got the deal with Misfits promotions as well, and you've got the series lined up there. How are you finding trying to keep the market there, those fans engaged with the hardcore boxing schedule, so we say? Yeah,
well, I think Eubank Ben will be a major part of that. Anything AJ does will be a major part of that. I think Canelo Triple G 3 is a major part of that. Look, we announced 2 more X Series, Misfits and DAZN X Series events for mid-October and mid-November today. One in the UK, one here in the US. Look, we've had great success. I said this a few times. It's so good for us to be back in the crossover boxing space. I know not all of your audience are going to love it, and they'll probably comment and share their thoughts on this video. But in terms of growing the sport, engaging new fans, my big concern for sport more generally is probably your generation, slightly younger than me. You guys have grown up with the internet since you can remember, right? What that's done is serve a load of content offers to you and formats to you that we didn't have growing up. We had TV and sport. That was pretty much it. As a result, young people, frankly, there's an apathy towards sport more generally that concerns me as someone who makes their business in sport. We have to find ways in boxing and in sport more broadly to engage and gain the interest of those kids. Those kids are now coming into being the major credit card holders in households. They're in their early 20s, mid-20s, some of these people now. If we don't do things like the X Series, we don't find ways to reach them through the talent and through the platforms that they are interested in, we're going to lose a generation potentially of fans to other things. So boxing, more than other sports, needs to embrace that. Our play in that space is the X Series. We got into it in 2019. We sort of gave birth to this crossover celebrity boxing at that scale with Logan Paul KSI 2. We then stepped away from it during COVID. I'm so excited to be back into it because honestly, in terms of growth and opportunity for us to build a business and engage a new, completely different segment of fans, that is the route to doing it. And KSI and people like that, Logan Paul, they love boxing. They've dedicated a decent chunk of their lives to the sport. They could be doing anything else. They could be playing Game Boy. They could be doing art. They could be skipping. They could be doing anything, right? They're choosing to box. So that's good for boxing because it naturally moves their audience, which is highly passionate, highly engaged, over to the sport of boxing. There's naturally going to be crossover and bleed over, which is great for us. And it's great for the sport, in my opinion, and it's a way of engaging the next generation of sports fans with the sport of boxing. So that's my pitch for X Series, and I'm very excited to be back involved in it.
Right, Joe, we'll leave it there now because I know you've got other people to speak to, but thanks for speaking to me and ID Boxing.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, Joe.